Now, with tonight's class, we are going to be continuing on with Twitter, specifically with integrating Twitter into our website now. So now this will be our final Twitter class, and after tonight, everything is going to be integrated in with our site. We will be able to make automatic posts from our WordPress site to our Twitter account, and we will also be able to build Twitter followers from our actual website. So to get started here, I'm going to go over to Twitter. Now, I am in the profile. If you just go to the gear icon up here and go to Edit Profile or to Settings, you'll get to a page that shows you this menu, and just click on the mobile link. Now, here's the reason why I'm on this page. One of the downsides to using an automatic posting plugin with Twitter is that they actually require you to have a mobile phone number connected with your Twitter account. Now, everybody out there may not necessarily have a mobile phone number. There are some ways that you can get around it. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to give a tutorial for every possible country that is out there because there's simply too many of them, and each one may simply work a different way, or you may have to use a different service for it. But essentially, you should be able to find some kind of free service if you do not already have a mobile phone number. And you can then use that mobile phone number on Twitter to activate this, which is going to be necessary for the plugin that we're going to use that will automatically post our tweets for us. Now, if you live in the USA and you don't have a mobile phone number, this will be the easiest situation to overcome. It's not simply enough to have a mobile phone number. What you ultimately need is a mobile phone number that can send a text, but not only that, it needs to be able to send a text to a short code number. Now, if you don't know what a short code number is, you've probably seen advertisements on TV for all those silly ringtone services and quiz type of services where they'll ask you to text to, if you live in the United States, it's usually going to be a 5-digit number instead of a full phone number. Now, obviously, a lot of those services will have some kind of monthly charge that they're going to try to tack onto your cell phone bill after you text that number. But that's not what is going on here at all. You aren't going to get charged for anything by sending a text to this 5-digit number on Twitter. It is simply to verify that you are a real person. Now, in other countries, the number may not necessarily be a 5-digit number. The short code number will vary from country to country. I have listed a couple of support articles on Twitter in the guidebook for today's class. These could be especially useful for you if you do not live in the United States and also do not have a mobile number that you can provide here. So what I'm going to do for today's class, I obviously don't want to share my mobile number here because I'm recording this class and this is something that will be potentially distributed to many other eyes in the future. So I would obviously not want to be using my real mobile number here. But since I live in the United States, I can actually use a service called Google Voice. Simply go to voice.google.com and you can provide any USA phone number. It doesn't even have to be a mobile number. You can provide a landline number here if you want to. This is to verify your identity and to ensure you're not creating a ton of different accounts. And then you can actually obtain your own mobile number with Google Voice that you can then use to send a text with Twitter to verify this process. And it's completely free. You won't get charged a single penny for doing this. So as you can see, I have a mobile number now with Google Voice, and I can use this number on Twitter over here to activate my mobile phone. So I'm just going to click on the Activate Phone button now that I have selected my country and entered in my phone number. Now once I do this, it's going to give me further instructions. If you do not live in the USA, pay special attention to whatever it's telling you here because it's most likely going to be different from what you're seeing on my screen right now. For anybody that does live in the USA though, it's going to say exactly this. Text go to 40404. So all you have to do is then go to your cell phone or to Google Voice or whatever you happen to be using and send that text. So in the phone number area, just type in 40404, and in the message, simply type in go in all capital letters. Then you just click on the send button. So this sends the text over to Twitter, and then we jump back over to the Twitter page. Now all we have to do is simply sit here for a second, and it'll automatically update itself and figure out that we have sent the text in, and it therefore verifies our mobile phone for us. So once this is done, we have all of these different text notifications down here. These are various settings that control when you receive a text on your cell phone for various things that are happening connected with your Twitter account. Now, there can really be a lot of different situations where you might be receiving these texts. If you are using your real cell phone number here and not a number that you've created through something like Google Voice, then you might be like me and you won't want to receive all of these different notifications. So I will actually go through and disable every single option that is listed on this page. And this simply ensures that I'm not going to receive any more future text from Twitter on the mobile number that I provided. So the entire point here of setting up our mobile number with our Twitter account is simply so we can do the next step in this process, because we would reach a point where we wouldn't be able to proceed any further unless we had previously set this up here. So the next thing we are going to do is to set up the custom plugin that I have provided for you guys as part of this class. This plugin is called WP2 Twitter. You can download it from the course materials for this particular class. Simply upload and activate this plugin on your WordPress site. Once you have done that, go over here to Settings and just look for the WP2 Twitter link. And this will take you to the screen that you see right here. So now there's a lot of different stuff on this page. I'll just quickly scroll down so you can briefly see that there's kind of a lot to look at here. You don't necessarily have to pay attention to every single thing that is on this page. There are a lot of customization options here in case you decide that you want this plugin to operate in a very particular way. The main thing you need to worry about to begin with, though, is this box right here up at the top. It says Connect to Twitter. What we're going to be doing here is setting up a Twitter application and generating some keys from that application and then putting those keys back here into the plugin. But before we do that, there is one thing that is very, very important. This top sentence that is printed out here. It talks about your server time and Twitter's time. Make sure you look at these dates and times very, very closely. They need to be within 5 minutes of each other, or else your server is not going to actually be able to connect up to Twitter. Now, in most cases, you shouldn't have to worry about this. You should simply be able to install the plugin and come to this page, and the times should be completely identical like what you're seeing here on my screen. But just in case they are not, you can go into the WordPress settings. Just go to the general page, and there is a time zone setting if your hour was off. Now, if your minutes happen to be the part that was off, you would need to go into your control panel or potentially even contact your web host to try to get that situation resolved. So now, once we have verified the times, check out, we are going to go down the page just a little bit more, and we have these 4 different steps that we need to proceed through now. These 4 steps will allow us to connect our website up with Twitter. So to start with, for step number 1, there is a link right here. All you have to do is click on this link. Make sure you are also signed into your Twitter account already on the same browser, and this will take you to the Create an Application page. Now, there's 4 different boxes here that we have to provide information for. Ultimately, though, these top 2 for the name and also for the description, they're not really going to matter. People aren't going to be seeing this information. So you can just type in the name of your website, for example. And for the description, honestly just provide pretty much the same thing. I just say something like Carbon Fanatic Auto Tweet Plugin. The part that really matters here, though, is the website and below it the callback URL. These both need to be your domain name. So I will have carbonfanatic.com here. Make sure you include the http:// at the beginning of it. And then simply provide the same exact thing down below here for the callback URL. Now once we've done this, scroll down to the bottom. You have these developer rules of the road, and you have to agree to this information. Now ultimately there's not really a lot you have to worry about here, but it can be worth scanning through simply so you know what you are agreeing to and what their limitations and restrictions are with this system. Now once we are into our application here, there are 4 different tabs up at the top. We are going to go through 2 of these particular tabs. The first one is the Permissions tab. This grants the proper permissions to our application for managing our Twitter account. So since we want a plugin off of Twitter to be able to post tweets to our Twitter account, then we need to not only be able to read our tweets, but we also need to be able to write tweets to Twitter as well. So to do that, we have to use this particular option. Now, this is the particular step where you will run into problems if you did not previously go through and add a mobile phone number to your Twitter account. It simply will not let you switch this to read and write unless you already have that set up in your profile. So simply select this bubble. As long as you've already set up your mobile phone, you're good to go. Just click on the Update Settings button. Now we need to go over here to the API keys. We're going to look at our API keys up at the top here. Look at the access level right here. It will say over here either read or read and write. You want to make sure that it says read and write. If it is not updated already, you may want to simply try refreshing the page first, and if that doesn't work, you can always go down here and click on the Regenerate API Keys button, and this will allow you to regenerate these keys for your application. So now what we're going to do is this API key and the API secret, we need to copy this information over to the plugin on our website. Now if you notice right here, step number 2 was switch to the Permissions tab and select Read and Write. So we have already performed this particular step. Step number 3 is to go on to the API keys. So we have now generated those keys and we can paste them into these 2 text boxes. So I have my key now, and now I need the secret. So I copy this and paste this in to this text box. Now the last step here. This requires access tokens. We need an access token and an access token secret. To get this information, we go back to Twitter here and just look down at the bottom of this page, the same place where we got our API keys from before. Just look for your access token, and down below where it says Token Actions, just click on Create My Access Token. Now after this is done, we should have our tokens generated. If you don't see them on the page here immediately, like I said again, you may have to refresh to get them to actually show up. So once again, double check your access level, because this is very, very important. It's not going to work correctly if this is set to read. It needs to be read and write. So we have our access token and our access token secret up above. So simply copy these keys and paste them into the plugin. So now, after we have proceeded through this, we are ready to connect up with Twitter. Just click on the blue Connect to Twitter button right here. And then we simply just need to wait a second and look for this confirmation message. WP to Twitter is now connected with Twitter. So as long as we see this, then everything is connected up correctly. We have created the application correctly, and our server is configured properly to be able to do this type of connection. Now this should go through flawlessly for most people. If you happen to have any issues with this, so please feel free to get a hold of me, and be happy to try to help out with your particular situation. So now up here at the top, we have this information box now, and this shows our API key, our secret, our access token, etc. If we ever needed to disconnect this and create a new application, we can do that by getting rid of it here. I have actually already connected up this particular plugin with my Twitter account previously. And as you can see up above here, I've already made a tweet that has gone through successfully on my site and also on my Twitter account. So it gives me a message up here saying that even my last tweet was sent successfully. So beyond that, there are a number of other options here that you can choose to play with, but ultimately you don't have to do anything additional beyond what I've already showed you. Just simply doing that sets up the plugin and configures everything how you're going to need it to be able to post these posts on your website as tweets over to your Twitter account. But one thing in particular, out of all of these settings that are available here, the Google Analytics setting down here towards the bottom, if you already have Google Analytics set up with this particular website, what you can do is change this setting from no analytics up to, I like to use this one, use a static identifier with WP to Twitter. And this will simply label all of your links that are being tweeted on your account. So then when people are clicking on those links and landing on your website, Google Analytics can specifically track that traffic as having come from Twitter. So now there's another option here. You can use a dynamic identifier, and this simply means that the identifier would change in different kinds of situations. For example, if you had a number of different categories and you wanted to know which category was bringing in the most traffic for you, you could simply use this category identifier here. If you wanted to track things on a post-by-post basis, you could use the post title or the post ID, for example. If you had a number of different authors on your website, you could use the author option. But for me personally, I just simply identify Twitter as a whole and use this particular option here. But again, don't worry about enabling this if you don't already have analytics connected up with your website. So now I'm going to go ahead and save my changes here. Now I will later come back and briefly explain some of these other options that are available here. But for now I want to continue on and show you essentially the basics of everything so you can easily understand how to proceed through this whole process here to get this working on your site. So after you have this plugin connected up with Twitter, you're completely ready to go at that point, and you can actually go into a post that you have that you're going to be writing in the future. I wouldn't go back through all of your past posts. If you wanted to make tweets on those, make that the subject of manual tweets that you make from your account in the future. So when you're going through and creating a new post, you will find on that page, I'm going to go ahead and edit my previous post here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Down here in the right-hand sidebar, you will find a box called WP to Twitter. And there is a text box right here. this text box is your custom Twitter post. So whatever you want to tweet on your Twitter account about this particular post, you can write that in right here. And then when your post gets published on your website, whether you are doing that instantly or scheduling it to be posted, then it will automatically tweet this particular message for you. Now, there may be some people that don't want to go through the trouble of writing out a custom tweet for every different post that they're making. You know, you're already writing your search engine meta description and a social networks listing description, and then now you also have this tweet to write as well. So I completely understand that this can get to be a little bit much. You end up writing more for these different posts than you are for the actual post on your website. So there are some options that you can use with this particular plugin to cut down on your work, or potentially to even completely avoid writing a custom post for every post that you're creating on your site. So now I want to point out a few different things here. First of all, in your custom post up here, you can use things like hashtags within your tweet, and these will automatically get translated into hashtags on Twitter. Hashtags being something that I was discussing with you in the previous class. You can also use username references right here, where you put the @ symbol in front of a Twitter account's username. Also something that I had discussed with you in the previous class. But in addition to that, if you look at the end of my message right here, it kind of looks like a hashtag. It says hashtag URL, but then I have another number symbol at the end of it. This number symbol at the end of it makes this a template tag. Now, a template tag, this is referenced right down below. If you look at the Notes tab, you have a number of different template tags that are listed right here. And URL, the one that I have used, is one of them. Now, what these do is they have particular information that is assigned to each of these template tags, and this information can potentially vary from one post to the next. So, for example, the URL template tag is not a URL just to my general website, but it's actually a URL to this specific post. So I can put the link to my post wherever I want it to be within my tweet up here. But I don't have to worry about copying the link and pasting it down here or anything like that. All I have to do is use this template tag. So the same thing really applies here to each of these other tags that are available. The title tag, for example, will be replaced by the title of the post. So if you simply wanted to have that and possibly a couple of hashtags and then the link back to the post being the entire content of your tweet, you could do that down here with fairly minimal amounts of work. The post tag right here, this is going to get replaced by content from your post. So again, you could use part of the actual post content from your website and make it part of your tweet if you didn't want to go through the trouble of writing out a custom tweet like I have done for this particular post. Next up, we have category. This will print out the category that your post is in. In a lot of situations, this will most likely not be something that you'll be using, but if you are running a site where you had perhaps followers, but maybe those followers aren't really interested in everything that your site is writing about, perhaps they're just interested in one particular category worth of posts or a couple of different categories. And perhaps you have, a number of different categories that you create posts in on your site. You could identify all of your tweets based on the post category this way, but in most other situations, it simply would not be useful. Now, the next two, date and modified, these will print out dates relational to when your post was created and when it was modified. The next one, author, this is going to simply be replaced by the name of the author. If you had a number of different authors or writers that were creating things on your website and you wanted to differentiate that in your tweets, you can do that automatically by using this tag. Next up, for the account, this will actually reference your Twitter account or the Twitter account of the author of this particular post. If you had multiple authors that were creating posts, some of those authors might have their own Twitter pages. And while you wouldn't be able to post these tweets automatically to all those different Twitter accounts, you could reference the proper author by using this particular tag. Now, one of the potentially more useful ones here is actually called tags. This particular one will create hashtags for you, just like you see here, except what's really going to happen is it will look at the tags that you have created for your post, and it will turn those into hashtags. Now, you wouldn't really want to just randomly generate a lot of different hashtags that way, unless perhaps your site was popular and people knew what those hashtags were really meaning. But if you were carefully creating your tags to only be the tags that you have researched already on Twitter and want to reference in your post, then you can have those tags created for you automatically in your tweet. Now finally, we have blog. Blog will simply show the name of your blog, so it would print out Carbon Fanatic in my case. Again, this is another tag that will not be horribly useful for most of you because you're probably going to have your Twitter account already named after your website, so there's not really a lot of point in trying to repeat something like that. So as you can see with this particular tweet, I say utilize carbon fiber, but I turned the words carbon fiber into a hashtag for carbon fiber. And then I said on almost anything with a motor, boats, trailers, tow vehicles, four-wheelers, and much more. And then I put a space at the end. It's kind of hard to see here because it runs into another line. But then I put the URL tag, so it will automatically create a link in this tweet back to the post on my website. Now, if you do not create a custom message right here for your tweet, it's still going to post a tweet for you. If you look right here, you have some options. Don't tweet this post and tweet this post. So if you really don't want to send any kind of a message for it, simply click on this one. Leaving this box blank is not enough. Now the reason why is because of the template. If you look right here, it says your template. It's saying post edited because I have obviously already created and published this particular post. So if I was going to then post another tweet about it, it's not going to take back my old tweet. It's going to simply post a new tweet about it. So it will say post edited, and then it will use these template tags for me to automatically create the message of my tweet here. So it'll use the title and the URL of this particular post. Now, this can be really handy because if you don't want to worry about creating these custom tweets for each of the posts that you're writing on your site, you can actually use this template system to do it for you. And it's customizable. You don't have to simply accept it one particular way. I'm going to jump back over here for just a moment to the settings page for this plugin. If you look right here, we have status update templates. Right here where it says post, we have new post, title, URL, and down here for updated post when they are edited, post edited, title, URL. You can disable one of these if you don't want to update when a post is edited. You can simply turn this off and it won't automatically try to do that for you. You can do the same thing here with the initial post. If you don't want your tweets to happen until you go and take a look at your page and make sure everything is okay, and then maybe you want to go back through and do one last final update on the page, you could simply use the second option here and disable the first one. Now, take a look up top here. There is a tab for posts and another one for pages. Pages is actually disabled by default, or if it's not already, you should disable it because you will likely not want to be making tweets about the pages that you create on your site, because you're not really going to be creating a lot of pages. They will be your static pages, whereas your posts are your continual content that you're creating. But again, you can still customize all of that. If you're only creating a site out of pages, for example, you could still use this particular plugin to publish those as tweets. Now, the really useful part here is obviously that you can edit this. Let's say, for example, if I wanted to completely avoid writing these custom Twitter posts right here and just wanted this template system to handle it all for me, I could go through here and customize this particular text box to make it print out the relevant information that I want it to show. So, for example, I could do title and tags and URL all in one line with simply a space separating each of these tags. This would automatically post a tweet for me that would be the title of my post. Then it would create Twitter hashtags for me based on the tags that I had created here. So I could then begin creating these tags with my new post to relate to Twitter hashtags, so I wouldn't have to worry about my tweet down here, but still to include things like hashtags that can help to get my post more exposure. And then it would be followed by the URL to that particular post. So the entire tweet would be written for me automatically, and I wouldn't have to, go down there and write my own custom message. So I could, disable the updating one to where I would only have it publishing when I'm first creating my post, and then I could essentially just stop worrying about the Twitter side of it and just kind of let all that happen on autopilot. But again, this still gives me some degree of uniqueness to my tweet. It's creating it based on the information that I'm writing for the post that I'm creating. Now you can get even more complicated with this type of setup. For example, if I wanted to try to put part of my post in here. Now, you might be wondering, well, how much of my post is it going to try to put? And what if my post is too long? The amount that it's trying to put in there, and it ends up trying to push out the really important parts like the tags or the URL. This plugin can actually handle situations like this and still make these more important and essentially chop off the post to the correct length. All of that happens with some of these more advanced settings that are available here. For example, with the tags. If you want to use the tag slug as a hashtag value, you can simply use that here, like I was talking to you about. And you can specify how many tags will be turned into a hashtag even. Now with the post itself, you can specify the number of characters that will be pulled from the post and put into your tweet this way. You can even provide custom text before or after all of your tweets. And then this part right here is what I think is one of the more important parts. If you are going to use a more complicated setup like this, you want to make sure that the priority for those different tags is reflected right here in the template tag priority order. 0 right here for the excerpt. This is set to a priority of 0, being the lowest priority. So it will then get trimmed off before anything else does to try to save room. So it could end up completely disappearing if there was no other room for it in that tweet. So you can rearrange these things as needed if you want to go for something very particular and you have certain parts of information that are more important than the other ones. Now beyond that, the other settings that are available here will most likely not need to be used, but they are for special case type of situations where if you had contributors on your website, people that were writing posts but they weren't the administrator of your website, and you wanted to make sure that they could create tweets for the posts that they're doing, you have permission settings down here that will simply allow you to do all that. Now, with this particular post that I created here, I have this tweet, and it automatically got published to my website, or to my Twitter account here. So as you can see, it says utilize carbon fiber, and it links up to the carbon fiber hashtag page, so people can could then go through and actually find me in here and potentially come and follow my account just because I'm making these posts. But it can also help to bring in traffic to my website because I have a link here at the end that references that particular post on my site that I've created. Now if you look at the URL when I'm hovering over it here, you can see towards the end of it all the little tags that say UTM campaign, UTM medium, UTM source. They all say Twitter there. These are placed for the Google Analytics, that setting that I was talking to you about earlier, the identifiers here. So this is how Google knows exactly where this traffic is coming from, so you can track it all and figure out, what's working for your niche and what isn't. It's always better to try to track things like this instead of just simply doing one thing and just assuming that it's working. There might be particular ways you write posts or certain types of words that you're using, certain subject matters that are getting a lot more interest than others, and without really knowing that information, you can't craft the post that you're creating on your website around that to try to bring in as much traffic to your site as possible. So now, to continue on from here, I'm going to go back to my website, and I'm going to go to Appearance and click on the Widgets link. What I want to do now is create a new linked image in the header of my website. Now, I actually already have this created on my site. You can see it right here, the Follow Us on Twitter button. So when people click on this, they will end up on my Twitter page and could then follow me. Obviously, I can't do that because this is my account. So this allows people to not only find us on Twitter, but to, follow us, especially if perhaps they did not end up on our website from Twitter directly. Maybe they came through Facebook, maybe they came through a search engine ranking, or possibly through any one of a number of other means. But then maybe Twitter is their preferred social network, and that's where they like to follow various types of websites. They can then easily find your Twitter account and follow along with you this way. This will help you to keep a lot more of the readers on your website that are actually interested in what you're doing. Sometimes you'll have people that will come to a website and they'll read it and they may really like the website and maybe you would keep up with it, but they simply don't have a way to do so. Maybe they'll bookmark it in their browser, but ultimately if you're bookmarking a lot of sites, that type of stuff can easily get buried. And following along with sites on social networks is simply a lot easier to do these days. And a lot of people do it, and they have this stuff connected to their hip all day long. So this is really an easy way to reach people. So what I want to show you here is how to get this set up. What we're going to do is use this header horizontal widget area. You should remember this from a previous class where we created these 4 text widgets, and I had code for you guys to put into the bottom 3. Well, today we're going to be going back into the second text widget here. Previously, this only had placeholder code. What I mean by that is it was simply creating a blank space. It was a div tag that created 245 pixels worth of blank width space. And there was simply a blank space within that tag to ensure that it got shown. So now what we're doing is taking that particular placeholder code and we're eliminating it now and replacing it with new code. This new code is something that I have provided for you guys in both the guidebook and also in a separate text file. Now, within this code, if I kind of break this up into a few different pieces here for you just to make it a little easier to see. You might notice that I have 3 sections of text here that are in all capital letters. First one up here says replace with your Twitter username. So all we have to do is just simply follow the instructions here and replace it with the relevant information. So now I will go over here to Twitter. My username is Carbon Fanatic, and I simply copy my username and then paste it into my code here to replace that capital letter text. Now next up, I have replace with your Twitter image URL. I have also provided you guys with an image that you can download as part of the course material and use this on your site. So this will be the image that you are seeing right here. Now, to get the URL of this image that we need to put in this code here, you need to download the image from my site and then take that image over to the Media tab and just click on Add New and simply find that image on your computer and upload it to your website. Now after you have uploaded the image, I've already uploaded this here on my site. You can see it right here. Follow us on Twitter. Just look for the edit link. And this will take you to the page that you see on my screen right now. Over here in the right-hand box, we have a file URL. This is the full website address for this particular image file that we have just uploaded on our site. So now we can copy that and paste it here into our code. Now the last thing we have is replace with your website name. So we're just going to do Carbon Fanatic. You could also do carbonfanatic.com. It doesn't really matter. Whatever your website is, put the name in for that. So once you are finished modifying all of this text, simply copy it and take that over to the widget. So just go into your second text widget and simply copy all the current code that is there and replace it with this new code that you have created. Now once you have done this, just save your code and then you can go back to your site and take a look at it. Now I broke this up into a number of different pieces. It ultimately shouldn't make a lot of difference for you here because WordPress does not automatically add the paragraph tags. I don't want to use this particular setting here. So now if I go back to my site just to refresh, it should actually still look completely the same. So I still have my Twitter image right here, and I can click on it to get to my Twitter account. Now, beyond these initial steps, I have another optional feature in this particular plugin that you could potentially decide to use, but it is ultimately not required. But I still wanted to point it out to you so you know it's there. On this widgets page, I'll go ahead and collapse these widgets that I was working on here. You should be able to find a WP to Twitter latest tweets widget. If you click on this and drag it into a widget location, I like to use the primary sidebar if I'm going to use this particular widget, and it will show the latest tweets from my Twitter account on my actual website here. Now, there's only a couple of pieces of information here that you really have to provide. The title is technically optional, but I'd still probably recommend putting something there just so people really understand what this particular widget of information is about. I like to use latest tweets. Next up, we have the username. So you don't need the @ symbol here. All you have to do is type in Carbon Fanatic or whatever your username is. Now, technically you could use this widget to include the tweets from another person's account on the sidebar of your website, simply to provide more content, for example. However, this widget will be creating links to that particular Twitter account, so you may not want to be building followers for another Twitter account. So in that regard, I would probably recommend to only use this for your own account, even though you could technically use it for other accounts. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on Save. I have told this to show me 5 tweets. These will be my 5 most recent tweets that I have made on my site. Now, this won't show up here on the main page. I have to actually go into one of these other pages of my site here, where I actually have the sidebar showing. And as you can see down here at the bottom, I have the latest tweet spots. Now, I have a link right here where people can view my profile on Twitter and follow me, which is actually kind of cool. It pops up in this little open up window so people can easily, there will be a follow button right here if, obviously you're not viewing your own account. And then people can also get to your full Twitter page through this particular link. So everything else below it here are going to be the recent tweets that you have on your account. So we have this first manual tweet that I made before the previous class on Twitter about 2 weeks ago. So you can see that here. And then we also have my recent tweet that was actually published because of this particular post that I am viewing here. Now, we have links here that goes to a status page for that particular tweet. If people wanted to go and see, a conversation that was going on with that particular tweet, they could get to it through these links here. But you might notice that there is actually some information here the carbon fiber hashtag and the actual links for Twitter that they have generated, the shortened links. These are not clickable links here in this preview like it is on Twitter for the actual tweet. However, you have some options that you can actually do things with that information. For example, if I just wanted to remove that information entirely, I could select the 3 parse checkboxes: parse links, parse @mentions, and parse hashtags. By saving this and then revisiting my page, you can see that these are now actually turned into links for me. So I have other options where I can hide replies to tags to the posts that I have made. I could include retweets, for example. I've already made a retweet on my account here, so if I do this, I should have a 3rd tweet showing up. Now this will show me a maximum of 5. Obviously it's not showing 5 because I have yet to make 5 tweets on this particular Twitter account. But as I make more, they would show up here and show a maximum of 5 and cycle off of this list as even more were created. So you can even do things like including the reply, retweet, favorite links. You know, if you had a site that was heavily into Twitter, you know, if you had a lot of Twitter followers and not really much of a Facebook presence, for example, and people were interacting with your tweets all the time off of your website, you could include these particular links with your tweets. And I'll show you what this is going to do for you. This gives you the reply, retweet, and favorite links, so people can easily retweet one of your posts. Now, obviously, I can't do this because this is my own account, my own tweets. However, anyone else could then come to my site who is a Twitter member, and they could easily favorite or retweet some of my posts that I have made directly through this particular widget. Now you don't have to use all these extra settings. If you wanted to show your tweets there, you could simply use this widget without all the extra options on it. And ultimately, you don't have to be using this particular widget. It's not an absolutely necessary step, because over here on your site, these posts that are relating to the tweets that you have made, once you have the plugin working for you and it's creating these tweets on a daily basis, then essentially the information you have here is going to end up being the same as the 5 most recent links that are up here at the top. They just simply would point to a different location. These go to your website, and these would go off to Twitter for discussion. So again, unless you have really a Twitter-heavy reader crowd, this widget might not be something that you want to use, but I still wanted to point it out that it exists because some of you may want to take advantage of it. Now, does anybody have any questions for me on anything Twitter related that we have covered, either from the previous class or from today's class even? All of these